It may or may not be a coincidence that there is a Wendy's about as far as I can hit a golf ball from here.
I'm Chris. I don't really know what I do here other than take up a bay in every shop they've had, except the first one. Never was in there. I think really why I'm here is we've become family. I don't necessarily serve a purpose other than turn a wrench and to help and have an idea once in a while and drive a car until I break it. Yeah, 1-2-1. But yeah, I'm here because we're family, essentially. My SPEED3, I bought, in 2013, so I would have been 28. When I was in high school, my first car was a 1990s CRX SI, yellow, with sunroof and everything, and I had an intake and a fart can, and I got big into cars then. It was right around when Fast and Furious came out. I went to automotive school after that. I dropped out of automotive school because I decided I didn't want to replace alternators and belts and shit like I was doing as an apprentice. And then kind of strayed away from cars for years until I was a draftsman in an interior design firm, had a little bit of money to play with, and decided to buy a SPEED3. And I told myself I was going to buy a fast 4-cylinder import car that I wouldn't modify, so I didn't cause problems. I bought that car, and within hours of buying it, after driving for a little bit, I got home and started searching the internet. And I found MazdaSpeedForums.org. And that spiraled into, 6, 7 motors? How many motors have I blown up at this point? I don't know. Too many. Yeah, and 15 years later, the car's still here. So I bought that car, got on Mazda Speed Forums. I found a couple of companies that were well liked on there for aftermarket parts, including Matt. I think that night, if not the next day, I ordered an intake from Corksport and via the forum ordered a short shift plate from Matt. And he said, instead of shipping it, you can come to my house next week for a meet and I'll help you install it. Yeah, that was the first day I met you. I don't think Farhan was at that meet, but I showed up earlier than the meet started because I was punctual. I didn't know meets don't really start until noon. Matt helped me install a short shift plate on my car that morning. I hung out all day for the meet. I forget what we even worked on, but there were 2 or 3 cars in your dad's garage that day. There was probably 20 people there. I met a bunch of people that day that are still friends in my life now, 15 years later. From there, I continued to go to other meets, put other little bolt-on parts on my car, and then the rear motor mount began to be developed. And Farhan and Matt asked me if I'd like to help test it. So, of course, I was up for that. I remember at the time I was living at my parents' house between apartments, and Farhan came out to my house one day to help switch mounts for some sort of adjustment. I forget what. Turned out his family lived, I think it was his brother or his uncle, someone lived like 3-4 houses down from my parents at the time. We worked on my car with that motor mount in my parents' driveway and garage probably 3 or 4 times. Within a few months from that, we all took a trip down to Daytona to see the Daytona 2400. Was that the first year you went too?
Yeah, no, that was like second or third year I went.
It was the first year I had gone.
Yeah, you guys had gone.
Farhan, Matt, Dan, and myself all drove down in the SPEED3 and camped, and it was a great weekend. And at some point, within a few months of that, Farhan was also looking for a place to rent. we decided to move in together. We started looking for places, went and saw a few places. We rented a house in Westchester. One of the requirements in our search was a garage and space, because we knew we wanted to host these Nader meets that Matt was hosting at his parents' and Dan was hosting at his place down in Kankakee, and it was always a good time, but we wanted space to do something similar. So we rented a house in Westchester with a long driveway. That was a fucking pain in the ass to shovel every time it snowed. But it had a 2.5 car garage. We rented that place. I took, I think, the first week off when we moved in and built a giant workbench in there, hung a TV. Eventually we insulated it so we could be out there in the winter and not die of cold. Maybe die of asphyxiation from the propane heaters we were running anyway. But we rented that house together for a few years and had a bunch of meets there, developed a bunch of parts, and turned wrenches on countless number of cars, whether it was our own, friends, customers. Farhan's very first Speed 6, Allie, at some point was in an accident and totaled. And I remember it was towed back to the house. He and I completely gutted that car of any part worth a damn to throw on a shelf. And, oh, we're going to use these parts someday. There's probably still half of them sitting up there that we've never used. But that, I remember having fun doing that at night. And on the weekends. I remember at some point when we lived there, my grandfather passed away. And at that point, it became more of an escape to wrench on a car than it did just something fun to do or as a hobby. So then we kind of digged into it a lot more. I was more motivated to develop or further the platform. Farhan was always motivated, just needed some more ideas, I think, at some point, or more direction into what people wanted or needed. And we did a lot of things in that garage. I built a motor for the SPEED3 by hand myself in that garage that eventually was running like 550 horsepower with a shit ton of methanol on a GTX 3076. The day Sean ran a 10 the first time at the Midwest Nader meet, I ran like an 11.4, I think. And the car probably shouldn't have done an 11.4, but it ran an 11.4 because the vacuum source on the wastegate popped off, so there was no more wastegate control. The motor survived. But yeah, the car has provided me a lot of memories and more importantly, a family outside of my own family.
I feel like that's a good story.
At some point, Farhan moved out. We went separate ways for a year or two, still talked once in a while. In that time period, Matt and Farhan got a shop. Where was the first shop at? Addison? Yeah. I never went to that shop. I had shit going on in life and kind of checked out and forgot what made me happy and feel whole. But I was living in Brookfield. I had switched careers. And at some point, Farhan reached out and was like, hey, our shop's in Brookfield. What's going on with your car? My car had been parked for probably a year or two in my garage in Brookfield because it was having fuel pressure issues, and I didn't have the time or the garage space. It was a single car garage that fit my toolboxes with the car next to it, but you couldn't even walk around it. I didn't have the time or the resources to fix it. I had a second car for a daily. And at some point, Farhan was like, hey, let's get your car to the shop. And I kind of avoided him, dicked around, and eventually someday he and an old friend Robert, who we don't see much anymore, just backed into my driveway in Brookfield that was not even as wide as a car, with 12.5-inch curbs. They had to navigate this flatbed trailer around, backed into my driveway, up to the garage, and he called me and said, "I'm here. Where the hell are you? We're taking your car." I think I was around the corner at the liquor store or something, getting groceries or something. I got there, and sure enough, they were there. We winched the car up. Their shop had then moved to Brookfield, which was like 6 minutes away from where I was living at the time. We towed it over to that shop, shared with the landscape company and all the gravel dust. And unfortunately, I lived life there for the most part until you guys moved here, because we just kept blowing up motors, trying to put it back together and push for more. But yeah, at some point, Farhan just said, "Hey, stop being a bitch. We're taking your car back to the shop. We're going to get it running, and we're going to go fast." And it's been here with new goals every year since. Plan for the car now is to run sub 10s this year. It's got a built motor, sleeved block, 1/2-inch studs. It could handle easily over 1,000 horsepower on the engine. Turbo's probably good for 900 right now. It has some more prototype parts on it that will assist that. It's been wired for Motec for the last year, so the goal this year is to go sub 10s. Future, probably even lower. We'll see how much time allows us. There's a laundry list left to do on the car. Finish up getting the fuel system installed. We've got to adjust the KDN shift cables that are on the car. It's got a new KDN shifter on there. We've got to adjust that so everything works good. I've got to get tone rings for wheel speed sensors for the Motec. And we've got to dial that in. Last year when we did whenever last time we went to the track was, it did have some weird idle surging, so we've got to iron that out in the tune. I need some definite cosmetic work, a rear wing. I'm sure there's a ton of other little things, but it's got a laundry list of things to do. Engine's in, wiring's good, but now it's time to get to work and get it ready for March or early April. Yeah, Matt already had a presence on MazdaSpeedForums.org. That was where I first, as soon as I bought the car and I started researching aftermarket parts for it, I stumbled across this forum, and that is the rabbit hole. That's where it all started. I think that's where it all started for all of us, is MSF.org. And then going to the meets, I learned of Nader, and I can't even remember the number of Nader meets I went to or different locations. And the Illinois chapter was great at the time. There was a ton of us, most of us way more capable than I think we all knew or understood at the time. A lot of people that didn't know how to turn a wrench, but I think those of us that were capable stuck together and became friends quickly, because hey, I need help doing this right now, you didn't have to explain to that person how to do it, and they got to work. Except for Matt, who liked supervising all the time and just telling you how to do it, even though he was supervising. But yeah, the Nader meets and MSF is where it all started. I met Matt first because he had a presence and a product in the short shift plate, which was actually in part designed by Farhan. I met Farhan inadvertently, I guess, through a short shift plate. And then I think the second meet or so I went to, Farhan was there. I don't even remember. But it was pretty early. And then we started working on the rear motor mount and testing that and tweaking that at my parents' place. And more Nader meets, and then Farhan and I were both looking for an apartment at the time. We decided let's buy a house with a garage to do more Nader meets, and we regretted that pretty quickly, but continue to have them anyway. But yeah, that's where we met first. Essentially, was on the internet on MSF, and it turned out we all lived relatively close to each other, and that's it.
Did you ever go to the East Coast ones?
Yeah,
You went to the one, yeah.
in what was it, Virginia one?
Yeah.
Where Bartlett 121.
Throw up that 1-2-1, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's a couple East Coast Nader meets. Then we hosted the Midwest Nader meet, which is when Sean went 10 something and I went 11 something. And when that was being planned, you were integral. I think I found the hotel that everyone stayed at that was near Westchester. It was like down at Roosevelt from our house.
Yeah, it's in Lombard.
Yeah, it wasn't far.
It's a halfway.
It's a halfway.
Our old house?
No.
Oh, the hotel?
Because I live right by that hotel. Yeah.
But yeah, like that Midwest meet, Austin was there. What were we doing on Austin's car? I remember pictures of him like laying on top of. Oh, it might have been Micah's car, was it?
Oh yeah, it was Mike. It was Mike's.
Was it Micah's Speed 6?
The turbine housing bolts had backed out.
Yes, and there's pictures of Austin laying on top of the fucking engine, reaching to him because he had the skinniest arms around at the time, and he could reach it, and no one else could. I mean, we've all known each other for years. There's probably a ton of these stories. I think Nader isn't necessarily a thing or a group. It's the mindset like I've discussed. We met each other. We all had a common interest. We're all willing to help each other achieve whatever goals you want, and accept the differences in each other in the process. Nader to me essentially is just friends. It's good people with a common bond and an acceptance of each other, and it manifested through turning wrenches on really small niche market Mazda speed cars that weren't famous anywhere. But we all somehow decided or ended up with Mazda speeds, and that's how we met. And it grew from there. Nader, as it's known, doesn't necessarily have meets or anything anymore, but it still exists in Facebook, and I'm Facebook friends or talk to people on the phone that are halfway across the country, and I haven't seen in 5 years, but I met through that. Nader essentially is a car community that started on a internet forum 2 years ago.
Hold on. Back up. Nader officially, I guess, started in California?
Yeah, East Coast, California.
No, it was Rodrigo. So Nader actually, first off, the reason it's called Nader is because of the Baconator. What it basically was a bunch of
Quality sandwich.
I'm not making this shit up. It's called Nader because of Baconator, because a bunch of people got together and decided they're going to donate their time, essentially, to other people that have similar interests as them. That's what it ended up being. People showed up. The same reason I met Matt, it was a Nader meet. The same reason we all met each other. Austin, Chris, all of us got together for Nader meets where we're donating time to each other's cars just to hang out. And now we all know each other's families. I mean, we've more or less grown up together over the last decade or two because of this stupid thing named after the sandwich. And this is why we're getting Wendy's for lunch. It may or may not be a coincidence that there is a Wendy's about as far as I can hit a golf ball from here. So I think we're getting Wendy's for lunch today just in honor of Nader. Carry on, sir.
I don't know how to go after that. I don't know where I'm going after that. All right, so one piece of advice I'd give myself 10 years ago or a 10-year younger me. Don't take for granted what simple things make you happy. These guys, this friendship, this car community, has always made me feel at home and comfortable. Whether it's worth the money I've spent on it, or it's a hobby that's changing my life in any positive way, doesn't necessarily matter, or positive way financially or something like that, because these guys have made my life better. They make me happy. They support me. And being a part of this friendship and this community and this company feels good, and it always has. And don't ever take the little shit for granted. Like I said, I have no role here. I have no necessary purpose other than to be here and hang out with these guys, and for some reason they're okay with that. I don't really get it, but I'll never take it for granted again. I did for a year or two, and I won't do it again.